Okay. Everyone is talking about the National Association of Realtors and the class action lawsuits that have been going on since last year. And I'm going to finally break the silence and just give you my 2 cents worth of what is happening and kind of break it down for you in terms that you can understand. Okay. Because most people do not understand how realtors get paid. So whether you're a buyer or you're a seller, you probably don't understand it and probably never have had the opportunity for somebody to actually explain it to you so you could understand. So this is my attempt at doing that. First, I want to say I'm not an attorney and I don't pretend to be one on TV. So all of this legal litigation is very complex and it's ongoing, and no decisions have actually been finalized yet. But if changes do take place, it will probably be happening sometime in July, but we're still not 100% sure if this is going to be effective throughout the country. So the first off is, how do realtors get paid? Okay, this is what all the crux of all these lawsuits are about, is about the realtor's commission or the agent's commission. So the old way of doing things, I'm going to try and show you on this little diagram. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, there we go. The old way is that the seller, okay, that's the new way. Let me go over here. The seller would sit down with the listing agent right here and talk it over and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we want to, they want to sell their house, and here's the price we're going to list your house for, and here's what my fee is. Based on what the listing agent's fee is, they don't get to keep the whole fee. They say, I'm going to split this fee with whoever brings a buyer. But that is negotiable. The commission has always been negotiable. Everyone gets to choose what they charge. My fee is my fee. It might be different from someone else's fee. And I, as the listing agent, get to decide what my fee is and what I will negotiate it to be. And the seller will then agree or disagree with that. So based on that, I say, well, then this fee is then paid directly to the buyer agent, or the agent that brings the buyer, that represents the buyer. So the confusing part is most of the time people are like, well, that's kind of weird. The buyer's agent gets paid by the seller, but they represent the buyer. That has always been kind of the crux of the confusion, is how can somebody represent the buyer and be paid by the seller? So the confusion in the new way is supposed to be more clear, because they're going to decouple that commission structure. So whenever the fee, whatever the listing agent's fee is, instead of the listing agent splitting that with the buyer's agent, it's going to be an option for the seller. Now, the new way is going to be the seller is still going to pay the listing agent. Now, can the seller pay the buyer's agent directly? Yes, the seller can pay the buyer agent commission if they choose to, but we are not going to be able to advertise that or list that in the MLS. Previously, when I sat down with buyers, I would say, here's an MLS sheet, Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller, and I would say, here's the sheet, and this is what I'm going to get paid. This is what the seller is offering to pay me to bring a buyer to the property. Whatever that fee is. Again, it is variable and it is not set in stone. It depends on what the listing agent negotiated with the seller on their behalf on the front end. So sometimes it was 1%, sometimes it was up to 3%, and it could be any variation in between. There is no set commission, and there never has been a set commission. So now the new way of doing things is right here. The seller can pay the listing agent, the seller can pay the buyer or the buyer's agent fee, or the buyer can pay the buyer's agent fee. It's going to be decoupled. Whereas in the old model here, we're showing that the seller agreed to pay the listing agent their fee, and the listing agent then agreed to split that fee with anybody that brought the buyer. Okay, so I know it seems kind of complicated, like, well, what's the point? Well, the point is now sellers are going to have more control in what they want to pay the buyer's agent. However, it will be my responsibility as a listing agent to say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, no, you don't have to offer a commission to anybody that brings a buyer, and a buyer can pay for their own representation. However, we have to look at what is going to be competitive in the marketplace, what is going to be something that's going to bring the most amount of buyers to your home, what is going to be the situation that is going to be able to attract the most people to your home and to get the most eyeballs on your home. Now, if a buyer's agent commission is not offered, that might decrease the amount of showings you get on your property. Now, that is going to be completely up to the seller to make that call. It has always been negotiable, and it has always been up to the seller. And I explain that in my listing presentations. And most people are going to try to negotiate the commission, and then it's up to the listing agent whether they want to take that listing at a reduced commission or if they want to pass on it. So there's always been negotiations. There's always been choices for sellers and for buyers. Now, for buyers, the one thing I'm going to say for you is it might be more money out of your pocket. If inventory still continues to be low, as it is currently, as we're not having enough homes to sell, it's going to get more competitive. So those buyers that have the most money to bring to the table, meaning they're going to have their down payment, which is going to be anywhere between 3.5% and 20% down. Then you're going to have at least a 3% closing cost. If you're getting a loan, you're going to need at least 3% to bring to the table for your closing costs. And then quite possibly you're going to have to pay your own buyer's agent fee or a portion of it. Now, the seller will still be allowed to pay for some of it, but the biggest change is going to be that it will not be advertised in the MLS what the agent is going to get paid. So that will be the buyer's agent's responsibility to say to you, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, I have they want to go see a house at 123 Main Street, and they say, can you find out what the seller is paying, if any? And that would be a phone call from me to the listing agent. Will the seller be offering any compensation on this property? I would discuss it with my buyer, what that case was, and my fee, if that seller isn't making up the difference to pay for my fee, would be a responsibility of the buyer to bring to closing. So that is one of the big changes that's going to be happening. We won't know, there won't be any transparency on the front end on what that buyer agency fee will be and how and who will pay for it. So the buyers will have to sort of expect that they're going to have to bring that to the table. So down payment, closing costs, and your buyer agent representation fee. Sellers are still going to have a choice, and they're going to still have the ability to pay that fee if they so choose. And the percentage or the amount that they're willing to pay is going to be up to them again. And the buyer will be responsible for that difference. So agents are still going to have to get paid. It's just going to be a different way of doing it. The best example that I saw or I listened to on a podcast was when you pull up your Google Maps to go to a destination, they'll say there's this route, point, A to point B, one route, and if you go this route, it might save you 5 minutes of time to get to that exact location. There's two ways to get there. You're both going to end up in the same destination. It's just going to be a different route. We're just taking a different route to get to the same destination. Buyer's agents have always gotten paid. Listing agents have always gotten paid for their services. What's going to happen in my mind, and this is my personal opinion, is those agents that cannot demonstrate their value and cannot demonstrate their ability to negotiate their fee and also represent their sellers to get the most money or to represent their buyers to get the best deal, those agents are going to fall by the wayside. They're going to get out of the business in the next year. A lot of agents are ready. I would say in our MLS, it's over 30% of the agents have gotten out of the market in 2023 or did not renew their licenses in 2024, which basically means that they did not have the skills to compete in this market. So here's the lesson in all of this is like you get what you pay for. Okay. If you want to go for the cheapest agent in town, you're going to get what you pay for. If you want to get the most expensive agent in town, you're going to get what you pay for. So you want the best experience. You want to get top dollar for your home. You want to be able to have the least amount of hassle. You want to have the least amount of stress in the whole situation. You're going to hire the agent that has the reputation and has the skills to get that job done. Same thing with the buyer agent. If you want a buyer agent that's just going to unlock doors, You're going to have to deal with that. They're not going to be able to negotiate for you. They're not going to be able to get you the house that you want or get into a house before it hits the market, before it goes under contract or gets 10 offers, right? So you want an agent that's experienced, and you want to be able to pay that fee knowing that you're going to get the service that you expect. Okay, so that is the lesson in all of this. I really would love to sit down and talk to you more about this. If you're a buyer and you're thinking about getting into the market, I would suggest we sit down and we have that 30-minute call. We can do it over Zoom, we can do it in person. Or if you're a seller and you're thinking about selling and how is this going to affect you, prices are not going to go down. As long as inventory is low, the prices are going to remain high. The inventory is going to drive the prices in the market. Okay, your house is not going to be worth less, and you are not going to be able to increase your price if you don't have representation. So if you want to know how to navigate all of this, you need to reach out as soon as possible. I'd love to talk to you about your situation one-on-one. This is what I do. This is what I love to do, is serve my people. Hope you guys have a great week.